Hey, everybody, Kevin Harnett with you. Hope you're having a good evening here, buckled in on a Tuesday as we prepare for 4 alert days in a row. This is going to be a doozy for us, something we haven't seen in quite some time. I've got a lot of data I'm going to go through with you, and really just wanted to jump on and make sure people knew we were prepared. Now, tomorrow night when we're on, we'll have a lot of, severe weather moving closer to us by this time, and then we'll be tracking that through the overnight hours. So I'm going to talk about timing. We really got a lot to talk about in terms of severe and the flooding threat. And if you've been reading any of the headlines, and I know we always get a lot of weather gurus on here and sort of the weather geeks, we call them, and we're part of that category too. So no offense in the name. But what we notice is if you read the discussions or you're on social media and you're seeing some of these wild posts, well, you've seen a lot of verbiage where it's like life-threatening flooding, and that catches your attention. So we do have a massive amount of water that we're dealing with in the atmosphere, thanks to a direct feed from the tropics coming across the Gulf, bringing that moisture right into our area. And that's what we're going to be looking at. So I see we've got a lot of folks jumping in. We'll jump into some of the data. I'm still waiting for the weather app to push this out. Sometimes that takes a couple of minutes. If you're on our news app, you saw the alert come through. So, and there we have it. So it's out, and let's just get started. I want to first start by looking back. Today, some of the surveys wrapped up from the storms on Sunday, and that's where we had the massive tornado sort of outbreak, if you will. We had 5 tornadoes in our viewing area. This is a live view from Corridon. Looks lovely there, doesn't it? It's been a nice day today, hasn't it? All right, this goes back. These were the warnings from March 30th. So let's start there, and then I'm going to take you on a little history tour. I've got the look at the Oldham era from let's see. This was 1937 right here. Can you read the headline? The Ohio Valley covered by floodwaters. Will this be a thing to come? I'm going to talk about that. We've got a lot of, this is the log of the 1937 storms. We sort of have an archive of weather data here at WAVE, and that's just part of it. So I'm going to be talking about that. And then Of course, there's a bigger version of what I just mentioned. I don't suspect that you can see that very well, but it's just a reminder of how that water in 1937 moved in. Now, on that event, we had 8.61 inches. We're talking 1937, the big flood. Some of you may remember it. I surely don't, only what I've read and done research on. But that was 8.61 inches of rain. We're looking at 8 to 12 inches of rain. Now, the one that some people probably remember a little closer was the 97 flood. And that, again, over a period of a few days was 13 inches of rain. All right, into that in a second. Let's start with looking back. And I'll just point out that, I mean, look at those tornado warnings. Southern half of Jefferson County, right down through Breckenridge, Hardin, Bullitt, Nelson, Spencer, Shelby, all under tornado warnings on Sunday, by the way. And then watch this. We look at the tornado damage surveys, where they were, right in those areas where the warnings came out. So let's take a look at the damage path. We had 90-mile-per-hour winds coming out of the EF1. All of those, anytime you get those storms along the line, typically they are weaker. So you get EF0, EF1, sometimes an EF2. It's rare to get it higher than that as it's propelled forward in that line. It can happen, but it's rare. So all of the tornado warnings and tornado touchdowns that we had from Sunday were on the weaker side, as we thought they would be. But still, I mean, does it really matter if you were under this dude and you got the damage and your home's ripped up? Yeah, you still got problems, right? This one went through the Fairdale area, right across the northern part of the Jefferson Memorial Forest, crossed 65 over just west of McNeely Lake. So that was the Jefferson County part of the touchdown. We go to the south, you get two tracks across Meade County, Hardin County into Bullitt. And that was 31 miles, 500 yards wide. That one had 105-mile-an-hour winds with it. The one that's situated just south from Flaherty over toward the Radcliffe area, EF1, 90-mile-per-hour winds. Still did some damage there. A lot of farmland down there. Speaking of farmland, we get you over into Breck County, Hardinsburg. There's Harned right in the center, hit by a tornado. Can you imagine? And while I don't know if I have actual family in Harned, I do have some dear friends that live in Harned, and I used to drive through there all the time going to Rough River, so I know that area very well. That crossed right over to US 60 just south of Garfield. So that too, 90-mile-per-hour winds. So that's 4 tornado touchdowns from Sunday. And here's the fifth one. This one was the 90-mile-per-hour wind southwest of Mount Eden. This was in Spencer County, also EF1. So that's a summary of the tornado, not only warnings, but also the touchdowns that we had and the damage surveys from the National Weather Service from this past Sunday. All right. Now let's jump into what we're talking about. These are our upcoming weather headlines. We've got multiple days where severe weather is going to be possible. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I think the most potent day for severe is Wednesday, tomorrow. It's obviously one closer, so it's a little more in focus. Our precision is going to be a little better for Wednesday. We have better data for that. But in addition to the severe, we have to talk about the flooding. And there is a potential for historic rainfall, possibly the most since 1997. That could cause some massive problems. And not only that, we talk about river flooding. That takes a little bit of time to flood the rivers. What doesn't take time are the flash floods that we see. Inevitably, people drive right into it. That's a problem. So when we talk about flash flooding, that's where you really just have to turn around, don't drown. I know we say it, but you got to do it. Just don't drive through it. Water is a huge force, and it can sweep away roads and bridges and, well, a lot of things. So the bottom line is you can't see, especially at night, when things are flooded, what's beneath the water, or more importantly, what's not beneath the water. So just don't take the chance. Give yourself extra time or wait till the next day to get to your destination. It's not worth driving through the flooding. I suspect with this heavy rain we're going to be dealing with a lot of flash flooding. Now that comes obviously with roads and streams, creeks, tributaries, and then the river flooding will follow. But some of these flood-prone areas, well, you know who you are. And if your basement is subject to flooding, now is the time to make sure you have a sump pump, making sure you have the generator in case power goes out to keep that pump running. This is what you have to prepare for when we're looking at a scenario like we're looking at. So not only do we have the severe part, which we're sort of used to for this time of year in this part of the country, and we've just been through it, but when we're factoring in this very heavy rain, that's another deal that you have to be ready for, especially folks that have problems when it comes to heavy rain. All right, we've gone through the headlines. Now let's tackle the alert days. Alert days are just meant to say, woohoo, over here in your busy world that you live in, we want to let you know here's something you need to pay attention to. We know that you can get caught up with all of the, listen, we're all in the world together. We know how busy the world is. We know how nobody's sitting in front of a TV very often for very long anymore. Everybody's on the go. We all carry these. And the bottom line on that is we know it. And we know you've got soccer practice and ball games and bingo and wherever else you're off to. So our way of saying, hey, pay attention to this day is by flagging it as early as we can with some confidence as an alert day. And then we track it and we say, okay, we're still going to keep it as an alert day, or hey, things have gotten better, let's pull it down. Bottom line on this deal is not only have we kept it up, we keep adding days. So now we've got 4 alert days: Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all for really the same issues. There is a daily severe threat. I think the biggest threat's Wednesday. And then a obvious flooding threat as we go through time. We're accumulating a lot of water as we move through. When we talk about severe, we're talking about wind, hail, and tornadoes. And of course, the historic flooding potential that we have to worry about. Let's talk about our severe risks. Today, we've had none. You can see Wednesday, we have the enhanced risk in the brown shading. The red is the moderate risk. That's 4 out of 5 on the scale from the Storm Prediction Center. So when we look at that, it would go marginal. That's the green. Slight is yellow. We're in that for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, by the way. The enhanced, sort of that brownish tan color. The red is the moderate. And then pink is high. And there is a high risk area farther to the south and west. We're not in that. You get out around West Kentucky, bullseye for the severe weather threat. All right. So that's something we're going to have to watch closely as we get close. So the tornado threat is high. The wind threat is high. The hail threat, that too, in this instance, as opposed to Sunday, is high. We're dealing with all modes of precipitation or of severe precipitation that can happen, or severe weather that can happen. When we talk about the flooding, that's going to be fairly high as well. Both the flash flooding followed by the river flooding. We'll take it sort of one step at a time. I've gone through the broad headlines as we work our way into the data. Now, today, and through a good chunk of tomorrow are the times that we have to prepare. All right. How do we do that? How can you make sure you keep you and your family safe? First of all, many of you are watching on our streaming platform. This is what we call Wave Weather Now. It's a 24/7 weather channel. It streams live all day, every day. We break into the stream from this studio several times, sometimes multiple times a day, always at least once a day. You'll catch Brian give his video blog from here every morning between 9 and 10 usually. Sometimes we get pushed to noon or 12:30. And then anytime there's an alert day looming, we're here. And we're here before the alert day and during. So tomorrow, if we have just rounds of heavy rain and maybe severe thunderstorm warnings where we don't want to jump on wave and blow out whatever's on, we'll be in here making sure our stream is running and you can catch us. All you have to have is the Wave Weather app. Scroll down, watch live. You'll find it there. All right. Remember, it's on all the time. So if you catch us when we're not on, just keep it on. Turn it up in the background. We will be on. Over the next 4 days, we're going to be on a lot. We have a schedule made out to when we're in this room doing live updates, and they are a lot. When we're not on the main channel, we're going to be on in here most likely. So make sure you have that Wave Weather app. That's one way. Make sure the phone's not on silent. Make sure it's charged. And then if you can get a NOAA weather radio, I know they're probably hard to get at this point because of Sunday, but if you can find them, and I know in the past, Walgreens, Kroger, Target, all these places have had them. You might check Publix. There are places that have had them in the past. Home Depot, Lowe's, the local hardware stores. Make a phone call, see if they have one. If you have one of those, and I think every home should have one. We say it all the time. It's like a smoke alarm for storms. It's the first line of defense. It's programmable for your county. It's programmable by alert. Now, you can't take off tornado warnings, but you can take off everything else. If you don't want the flood warnings, you're up high, you don't care about that, don't put it in. If you don't want the watches, don't put it in. You don't want the advisories, don't care about winter weather, don't put them in. But if you want to know about tornadoes, and I would suggest keeping severe thunderstorm warnings, then make sure that's there and you have it. All right, enough of that. Just charge the devices. Make sure you're ready to go. We could have more power outages. We had some of those on Sunday. Probably going to have a few more. I mentioned Wave Weather Now. This is where we will be during severe weather, so you know you can count on us. Wave Weather Now is that 24/7 streaming weather channel. It's the only one you're going to find here in Louisville. Our weather tonight is calm. We've got a few clouds overhead. Pretty nice day. Our temperature at 56 right now. Winds are east at 13. No problems here. I'll zoom this out. You can see the warm front that's working our way. That moves through tonight. So we're going to see milder temperatures tonight compared to the 30s that we had last night. And then that looming front back out to the west, that cold front, that's the troublemaker. Not a troublemaker because it's a cold front. It's a troublemaker because it moves in and doesn't move out. And as it gets hung up or stalls out across the area, repetitive rounds of thunderstorms will be moving across it. So that's the current setup. That area from Dallas up through Oklahoma, that's what we would call the warm sector. That's why we're seeing thunderstorms and some severe breakout across parts of Oklahoma. A number of severe storms there, some with very large hail, by the way. All right, let's get into the maps. The nationwide view shows that is the active weather across the country. For us, as that cold front gets a little closer, the jet stream also is sitting just to the west of us. That front stalls out. High pressure off the east coast is going to send up southerly winds. That pulls moisture up from the tropics and the Gulf. Just huge flow of moisture into the atmosphere for us. And sometimes that wouldn't be a problem if we could sweep it out. But the bad news is that front stalls. And as that happens, it just sets like a train track up for repetitive rounds of thunderstorms, heavy rain, and the possibility of severe weather each day. Though I'll keep saying Wednesday night, early Thursday morning's round of severe is the strongest as we see. Let's get into our severe risk. We'll start with tomorrow night. That is the first chance for severe weather. We have the moderate risk that encompasses parts of southern Lawrence, western parts of Washington, all of Harrison, Orange, Crawford, Du Bois, Perry County, and then into Kentucky, all of Meade, Breckenridge, and the far western parts of Grayson County. That is where we have the moderate risk. That's level 4 out of 5. The rest of us, 3 out of 5, if you want to look at it like that. What were we on Sunday? All of us were 3 out of 5. We were in the enhanced risk area. So that's our risk from the Storm Prediction Center for Wednesday night. The best timing for these storms, which should begin to the northwest and move off to the south and east, would be between 7 p.m. Wednesday. And I really think that's farther to the north and west. I think by the time they hit Louisville, 9, 10, probably close to 11 o'clock. And then that's going to continue overnight. So this is a nighttime round. That's why we're saying you have to have a way to make sure if you go to bed that you can be awakened. So if storms are moving in that are severe, you can at least know that those storms are approaching you. All right. So this is what we're looking at. We mentioned the threats: damaging wind, tornadoes, large hail, heavy, very heavy rain. That takes us into early Thursday morning. We already have tomorrow, before the storms even arrive, the chance to see winds of 40 to 50 miles per hour. And for that reason, we have a wind advisory that's in place. It covers all 34 of our counties. This wind advisory is in place from 8 a.m. 8 a.m. Wednesday, tomorrow morning, until 1 a.m. on Thursday. These are non-thunderstorm winds. Look at these winds. They crank up. 8 a.m., I mean, it's kind of windy now, but it gets even windier. Look, by mid to late morning tomorrow, 40, 45 mile per hour wind gust. 4 p.m., 50 mile per hour wind gust. Could have a few isolated downpours or thunderstorms trying to develop tomorrow afternoon, but those would be isolated, scattered at best. And then it's later into the night that the biggest round of thunderstorms will arrive. So our storm chances Wednesday, low through the day. That's why I say you have today and you have a good chunk of tomorrow to get prepared for the severe threat and the flooding threat. Notice by late tomorrow, skyrockets with the storm chances through the evening hours. And especially by the time we hit 10, 11, midnight, 1 a.m., that's when what's ahead of the front is moving through, the strongest of the storms. So let's take a look at it on the Futurecast. Here we are early in the day, morning through midday. Clouds continue to build in. We'll probably see some sunshine. Winds are howling from the south, doing two things, warming us up, low to mid 80s, pumping in plenty of moisture. All right. Remember, moisture is fuel for thunderstorms. It's also provides the rain flooding potential that we've been talking about. So there's no shortage of that. This is the afternoon chance, very isolated, very scattered for any downpours that try to develop. But we really start to see that development later into the evening hours as we bring in the strong southerly flow through the day. We're working with plenty of moisture out ahead of the cold front. These storms with individual pockets of heavy wind, some rotating, which would be the tornadic part along that line, all across the viewing area. By late Wednesday evening through the early morning hours on Thursday, our greatest threat for wind, hail, and tornadoes would exist. Notice by the time we get to 4 or 5, the bulk of the severe weather threat is ending, but the rain does not end. It sticks around, and we still have some pockets of heavy rain falling across the area. That's into Thursday. Our severe weather risk on Wednesday, we've mentioned multiple times now. Enhanced to the west, it is moderate. And it's just to the west, all right? Butts right into West Louisville, in fact. So that's impressive. So Wednesday night. Here's Thursday. Look at that front. Typically, these cold fronts, they try to sweep through, takes the precip with it. We're left on the backside. We're cooler. We're trying to dry out. No, not the case. The front comes in, slams on its brakes. It's here to stay for a few days. Bad news, unwelcomed. This front is going to be like a train track for these areas of low pressure to ride up on. And as that happens, we get dumped on with this very heavy tropical-like rain. And that's why we're looking at all of the data that's pointing anywhere between 6 to 12 inches. We've narrowed it down to 8 to 10, 8 to 12. Some areas could get more than a foot of rain out of this deal. Boy, that's going to be a problem. So we look at the potential for this heavy rain to continue. This is 8 p.m. on Thursday. That front is still nearby. We're increasing the low-level jet at night. We have the front. That provides the lift. We can still see enough of a push to see strong to severe storms even Thursday night into early Friday morning. Now, I don't think that threat is going to be as high as it is Wednesday night on this initial push, but it's still there. So we have to be ready for it. All modes would still be at play. Wind, hail, even a small tornado threat. I think the heavy rain is going to be most problematic for most people, all right, because that rain lingers across our area into early Friday. And you think, well, it's going to get out of here by Friday. No, it sticks around. Look at that front just bobbing back and forth. It does not get out of here. Another area of low pressure comes up. This is into Friday and early Saturday, and we still have a chance for strong to severe storms and heavy rain. That continues falling until finally, praise the Lord, we get it out of here on Sunday. And it takes a decent amount of time to get it out. So we're talking Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, finally, Sunday afternoon. Goodbye. we get it to finally that area of low pressure, the high pressure breaks down enough to where that area of low pressure can drag it out of here. All right. So that's where we are in terms of the severe. Now, again, we mentioned the severe threats, and I keep pointing this out because I want you to be prepared for both. Two things. We have to be prepared for the severe threat late Wednesday, early Thursday. We're in the enhanced to moderate. By the time we get into Thursday, we're still all in the slight risk. We're still all in the slight risk for Friday. And along and south of the river, we're in the slight risk as of this point on Saturday. And then finally, we're going to move it on out of here. But that's 4 days of nonstop weather. When I say nonstop, I don't mean we're never going to get a break. It's just that each day holds the chance. The best chance to sort of put it into perspective for severe would be really the evening into the early overnight hours. Now, the Wednesday into Thursday, that one's going to linger into the overnight. That could take us into 4, 5, 6 a.m. on Thursday morning. So bears watching. We'll have a finer idea of what's going to happen for Friday, Saturday, into Sunday once we can get this in here tomorrow night and early Thursday. So it all does sort of hinge on what happens previously. But this is the way the data shows it at this point. Look at some of these impressive rainfall totals. This is, again, by Sunday morning. Here in Louisville, we've got it painted as 8 to 12 inches. And then you get across the western part of our viewing area, western Meade County, Perry County, western Breckenridge, across southwest Indiana and West Kentucky, over a foot of rain. That's a doozy. And when we already start talking flood watches days ahead of any rain that falls, you know it's something that's on the way. So the Weather Service put out the flood alerts yesterday. The flood watch is in place from Wednesday through Sunday. Some of the computer guidance also shows this rainfall, and I'll just show you a couple of these computer guidance. This takes us through noon on Sunday. Again, we're looking at the European model here. This one puts out 6.79, some areas a little higher. Hardensburg, 8.8, Fort Knox, 8.0. Again, not important to look at the exact location because that will vary. But what's important is to note that we're sort of in the heaviest area of rainfall. And that ranges on the low side, 4 inches, to on the high side, almost 9. All right. And then if we look at another model, this is the GFS, you can see keeps going up almost 10, 11 inches of rain right into our area. So we are in a zone of very heavy rainfall that's expected. Now, obviously, when that rain is falling, flash flooding is a big concern. That's oftentimes when we find that people drive into the water. We find that, they didn't expect it. It caught them off guard. Their home may have flooded. And then we get after that, what doesn't recede usually goes into our tributaries, and that's when the rivers start to rise. So when we look at the potential river stage, this is looking at the next 7 days. I mean, even Louisville now could go major flood. That's new data. That wasn't like that earlier. So you can see places like the Kentucky River, the Rolling Fork, the Muscatatuck, the East Fork of the White, all forecast over the next 7 days possibly to go major flood, and even the Ohio could. That's going to be wild. All right. So that's where we are. Let me find, I don't know, what's the best to pop up. Maybe and then I'll take some of your questions here. Maybe just the pattern in general. I'll leave that up. If you have specific things that you want to look at, let me know. But I'll leave that beside us. And then let me just pop this up here. All right, I'm going to put this up because I wanted to show you a couple of things. We have a little historical archive in the basement. This was the old Louisville magazine the Courier Journal used to put out. This was their 50th anniversary of the flood, and you can see just some of the images on the front of that where people are in boats being rescued. I mean, they're still in like their suits It's just wild to think back to 1937. That was a big one. And of course, 97. But I mean, look how inundated. Now, we're not saying, by the way, I should preface, we're not saying this is the way it's going to be. We're just saying back in 1937, we had 8.6 inches of rain. We're looking for more than that. A lot of infrastructure has changed. A lot of geography has changed. So, we're not going to hopefully see the city flood like this, but whew, what a mess that was back, again, the 1937 flood. And of course, we're far more prepared than they were back then as well. So I just point that out because we have a bunch of data that we look at. And I mean, when we look at flood crest from the McAlpin Dam, and the locks, this goes all the way back to 1937. So it's kind of fascinating to look at that, and equally as fascinating to see that the potential for historic flooding. I mean, when we talk historic flooding, that's what we're looking at. That's the log of the January. Now, that flood was in January. But when we're talking historic, well, that's a big deal. So, and then I'll show you the front page of this one more time. This was the Oldham era. And you can just see that headline. The Ohio Valley covered by floodwaters. And, we'll see how it works out. We're going to be here. Let's hope that we don't have a whole lot of problems. I have a feeling we're going to have problems. Let's hope we don't have a whole lot of problems. All right. The key is preparedness. I really do believe that. And if you have flood-prone areas, you've got to prepare now. If you don't, and you're not sure if you do, you have to have a way to get the alerts. So if you've maybe turned off flood warnings on your NOAA weather radio, you might just put them on so you know if it comes out for your county. All right, let's take a few questions. I know a lot of folks are on. In fact, we've got thousands and thousands of people watching, so thank you. The stream is up on our social channels too. That was another thing. Well, you hear us talk about wave weather now. It's because we actually control that, right? We can control that. I can't control Facebook or X or Twitch or YouTube. We stream on those two, or we try to, but sometimes there are hiccups along the way that we have no control over. So the best way, I'm going to tell you this because if we get into emergency weather, the best way to see us is the Wave Weather app. Scroll down to Watch Live. You'll find us there. We will be there. All right. So let's get back to it. I'm going to try to scroll up and take some of the questions that came out early. I wasn't able to keep up. So I'm going to just jump in. And I can't answer specific places, right? Because we just don't know. We're all under really the same risk. There's going to be the risk of severe for all of us. And there's going to be the risk of flooding for all of us for multiple days in a row, at least as the way it looks today. Now, maybe as we get into late Thursday or early Friday, we can say, all right, well, Saturday's looking better for some of you. But right now, if you're listening in the wave viewing area, we serve 34 counties, Indiana and Kentucky combined. And that means we have the severe risk Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Rain will persist through Sunday for many of those locales, and flooding is going to be an issue because of the amount of rain we expect. It's 9:15. Let's see. Sorry, I'm going back to the top here so we can just take a few questions. I'm not going to be able to get to all of these. I'm trying to thumb through them, and we got them coming in from Facebook and YouTube. And well, again, when we say Facebook, we're on about 6 different Facebook channels, 3 different Twitter or X channels. All right, here we are, back to the top. All right, got the map up. Let's pop up some. Well, and here's a thank you. Charlie saying, good evening. Thanks for keeping everybody up to date. Well, you're welcome. We're going to be here through the next 4 days. Our schedules are staggered where there's somebody here all the time. Most of the time, 2 or 3 of us here. So we've got a long stretch ahead of us. A lot of folks saying hello for your from your location. Some of you wanting me to get to the data a little quicker than I did. And I did that chronologically so we could just kind of work our way through what to expect. Here's the deal. We like to be the voice of calm in severe weather. We're going to walk you through what we know, tell you the time frames you need to be concerned, and the threats that come your way, the impact that those could have. It's that simple. If we can just walk through that step by step, everybody will be calmer. Everybody will get through it, and we'll just be better on the other side. All right. So for the folks that, are just thinking about themselves in all of this, just realize we're broadcasting and talking on the stream to more than just one small group. Okay. Some people are asking about their particular rivers, and I'll put this one up because it's the Blue River in the Fredericksburg. Yes, I think any river across the area stands the chance to see the potential for some flooding. It's going to happen. Braden is asking, how does this compare to the flood event back on February the 15th? I don't have the exact rainfall we had then. It was nowhere close to what we're looking at now. So I suspect we're in for something far more extreme than what we saw in February. Let's see. I do think it can be worse than, what we've seen in recent times. That's why even the Weather Service is calling this historic rainfall. The good news is, if there is any saving grace that could help us, is it is over a period of time. So we're not getting it all in a 24-hour period. We're getting it through the stretch. And listen, weather changes, always. It's constantly changing. It's what makes it tough to forecast. So will our forecast change based on if we see bands of heavy rain setting up? Sure. Think of it like snow. Not everybody gets the same amount. And boy, we know when that happens, right? Because you're like, man, they got 5 inches of snow, but you were off over in our backyard. We only got 1/2 inch. Well, it's not easy to just nail down and exactly what everybody's backyard is going to get, which is why we give you that range of 8 to 10, 8 to 12 inches of rainfall. All right. 8 inches alone is more than they had as much as they had in the 1937 flood. If we get 12, we're already edging closer to what we had in 97. That was a big deal. The bottom line is, April points out, if you don't have to be on the roads, stay off them. Certainly don't drive through the flooded waters. Some people want to know if there's going to be a tornado in their area. Can't say that for sure. This is a question Crystal's asking. Field trip to Marengo Cave from Louisville Thursday overnight. I would say that's a bad idea. Genuine question. Are y'all going to leave the studio to go home or stay in the studio during the weekend because of the flooding? How does that work? Well, we haven't made weekend plans yet. We're working through the 4 days that we have, which I guess includes parts of the weekend because it includes Saturday. So we'll adjust based on the weather. But we're here. We'll go home till we can, if we can get home, assuming that's the case for everybody. But yes, we will make it a point to get rest. But we are working 12-hour shifts. So we're going to be here for blocks through that time. There will always be, always somebody here. And I'd say 95% of the time, 2 or 3 of us here. And that's especially, there are 3 of us when we have the greatest potential for severe weather, right? So when we're talking the potential for the strong winds, the hail, the tornadoes, when we would have to, you sort of have to be here to do everything we have to do. That's why Ryan is not sitting beside me tonight. He went home a little early tonight, knowing that tomorrow night is going to be a super long night for him. All right. Brian will come in a little later because he knows tomorrow is going to be a very long day for him. Tawana comes in very early Thursday morning. All right. So our schedules have adjusted. Just so you know. Appreciate that question. Let's see. Some folks, I'm confused by some of the questions because they're not questions. People are answering other people's questions, and I appreciate that as well, because that's helpful, because I can't get to it all. And some of you may have seen that I've already answered it in the stream, so you can answer it for it. So Braden's asking, any chance the moderate gets expanded into the Bluegrass region or Lexington metro? At this point, it seems to be in good placement with all of the ingredients that are going to be there. If it were maybe moving through earlier in the day, maybe, but it looks like we're going to be toward the end of that, and Lexington's even later. So I suspect that the enhanced risk area for those folks seems to be a decent bet as well. And you really shouldn't get caught up a whole lot in the different categories when they're that close. I mean, if you're going to draw that line from moderate to enhanced in our area, it's like, well, it's one county away, it's one street away. Does it really matter? Yeah, wouldn't get caught up in that. Just know there is going to be some severe weather late Wednesday night into early Thursday. Have a way to get the warnings. Leah's saying, wow, yeah, that radio is so loud you can hear it from outside. Some of the NOAA weather radios are very loud, and you can adjust that. The NOAA weather radios are on Amazon. And overnight delivery is available. So bingo, good idea. Our NOAA weather radio doesn't pick up the signal where we live. We can only use our phones for alerts. Yeah, that's tough. Sometimes those weather radios, you have to get an external antenna to get the signal. That doesn't happen very often, but there are areas that is the case. Let's see. I've gone through a lot of the timing. Again, I'm sort of thumbing through a lot of people asking about the, certain locations. We're all in it. If you're looking at the timing, this is going to be late tomorrow is when it begins. So strong winds tomorrow afternoon, threat of severe weather tomorrow, probably around, let's say in the northwest part of the viewing area, 8 to 9, closer to Louisville, 11-ish, midnight, something like that. And then you can track that further away. But it may linger. This doesn't go away. That's the difference in this scenario, is it doesn't just wash through and get out of here. It sticks around. So the severe threat tomorrow night may start at 10 or 11, but as that band tilts back up, it might repeat over and over, so we could get multiple rounds. It doesn't just move through, it's in and it's out. It sort of resets for the next day. It has to lose its energy. In other words, it's not getting swept through and wiped out. It has to lose its energy, and then it builds back up for the next day and triggers again. Yeah, the storms at night, we often see that around here as the low-level jet kicks in. The daytime heating has been building, so the thunderstorm ignition and the cap breaks as we start to cool the atmosphere a bit. So not totally unusual. What is a little unusual is the fact that we have such flow of tropical moisture into the area, and we have the stalled front. So it's a bad series of combinations that really lead to something that, could be bad. Amy's asking about the Weather Channel. Why do they have our area as a Torcon 7? I have no idea. You'd have to ask the Weather Channel. Some folks saying, hey, good ways to get warnings, the Wave Weather app. Cameron's saying sign up for the Lens Alert. Yeah, a lot of the counties have specific robocalls that come out when tornadoes are issued. Just know that those outdoor tornado sirens are not meant to wake you up. They're not even meant to be heard inside. They're for outdoor use only. And a lot of the phones will go off. I know on Sunday, some folks down in southern Jefferson County, beep, 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 that shrill sound that comes out with the Amber Alerts or Lens Alerts and the tornado warnings, that worked for many folks. You may have to have a setting on. It'd be worth a quick Google search to see and make sure your phone can receive emergency weather information and figure out how to turn that on. While it went off for some in the southern part of the county, it didn't go off for us downtown because we technically, as we were working here, we were not under the warning. It was just south of us. So that's a good thing to have as well. Let's see. Some folks still asking about that moderate risk being expanded. Don't see it right now that would be the case. Let me put up, I didn't load this graphic. Give me a second here. Clear that out. I want to put up it's sort of a timeline. This might help you. And I'll slide that in about right here. I'm going to pop this up. This will give you an idea. Just know where you see the day. That's the midnight hour and beyond. So you can see that the wind cranks up tomorrow afternoon. We're really going to notice that wind tomorrow, late morning into the afternoon. The severe threats closer to midnight and then beyond midnight into early Thursday. The heavy rain would have begun by then, obviously, so we start to see the flooding threat carry over through the next few days. And then we get a break from the severe. The severe threat doesn't last the entire time. Otherwise, we'd have that all shaded in red. No, the atmosphere sort of recovers. It comes back around Thursday afternoon into very early Friday morning. So we're talking midnight, 1, 2 a.m. And then we get a break and then another wave of rain. And this will be adjusted. I mean, we're down to the hour now, right? Where we're moving and trying to determine. But this is what it looks like with the latest data that we have. But we'll be adjusting these blocks, whether that's adding hours, deleting hours, moving hours. You get the idea. So that should be somewhat helpful to see what we expect. That's our forecast there. All right. Let's see. Yeah, some folks worried about work. Got to work 6 a.m. Thursday. Is it going to be messy? And as you can see from that map, yeah, we still have a lot of rain going on, but there is a lull in at least the heaviest or strongest of storms as we get into the latter part of the rush hour, but could be messy at 6 a.m. Wouldn't doubt that. Yeah, thanks. Dave and Gene Finney saying the Wave Weather app's excellent. We like the app. We've built that based on, and a lot of the apps around are the same, but what's different is if you really go into the app and you click on, so I'll give you an example. For us, our 24/7 streaming channel, Wave Weather Now, makes it different than some of the others. Also, we spend a lot of time on the app really working on what we call zones, different areas in the viewing area. If you were to click on, let's say, daily at the bottom of our app, and then tap on any of the days, whether that's Tuesday or Wednesday, you can see what we actually type out. So I don't know if you can see that or not, but we actually type that information in there. And that also shows up on our 24/7 weather channel. So it's nice because you can really, if you read that, you get a sense of what we're thinking because we type usually about 3 or 4 sentences in each of those groups. All right, let's see. Fowler's asking, I wonder if they're going to put up the flood barriers on 31W. You know, I heard the mayor say today that they haven't talked about it yet, putting up and I'm talking about the Ohio downtown in particular, but I suspect they will be talking about that. I don't think it means they're not concerned with it or they're not looking at it. I just think at this point they haven't done it, but I'm sure they will, at least the way things look. All right. Some folks asking, are we more worried about tornadoes or flooding? And boy, that's a tough question to answer because it depends where you are, right? Some people don't have to worry about flooding. High up, water's going to drain off, no worries. We've got a sturdy shelter that we're in, a house with a roof that doesn't leak, which, by the way, I did not have that not all that long ago. Remember back when we had the remnants of the hurricane move in? Oh, man, my house got flooded. I had to get new, anyway. Crazy deal. It was a weird angle that the rain was coming in at. And anyway, it can happen. So my point to answer your question is the tornadoes aren't going to affect everybody, and neither is the flooding. I think both can have problems. In fact, I grew up along the banks of the Rolling Fork, so I know how bad flooding can be. And I think it's terrible because it gets in everything. I mean, when the water gets in, you're talking replacing drywall, replacing carpeting. It's just a muddy mess. So, yeah, flooding is not good, and neither are tornadoes. And some people, I have a feeling, are going to have to deal with one or both, but not everybody. And that's the good news. Josh is asking, this seems to happen about every 30 years. Is this a cyclical thing? Yeah, I can't answer that. I agree that we see these things. This could be a top, or a 25 to 100-year flood that we see somewhere through that range. Certainly, when you look back to 97, then you had 1937. These things do happen, and they've happened before, and they'll happen again. How frequent they happen, thankfully, they haven't happened that frequently. But we did go through a period just a few years back. What was it, like 2018, where we had a couple years back to back where, boy, the Ohio just flooded like 3 years in a row. And it was like, boy, this is getting old, especially for the people that have interest along the river. Those poor restaurants and homes and businesses both really took a hit. Josh was asking, what time does everything start firing tomorrow? The wind will start, and probably asked that before I put this graphic up, but the wind will start through the late morning and afternoon. You'll notice that first. A few scattered storms in the afternoon, and then the best severe chance is going to be late in the evening into the overnight that takes us into early Thursday. That's the first round. Gary's asking, is wave weather now available on Spectrum cable? Not yet. So we don't have it. It's just a streaming channel for now. And that's where we're at with it. So the good news is if you lose power and your devices are charged, you can still watch. And you can watch through the Wave Weather app or the Wave News app or wave3.com. All kind of go to the same place and just find Wave Weather now. Let's see. Kyle's asking a question that we won't have the answer to. How big is the tornado threat for Clark and Floyd County? Well, when we talk about the threat in terms of percentages, and let me put some of those up for you since we're talking about it. Sometimes it's easier to visualize it graphically than it is for me to just try to tell you. Of course, we mentioned we were in the enhanced risk area with that moderate risk just over to our west. And those are impressive risk areas, right? I mean, we don't always see moderate risk. All right, let's take a look at the day 2 severe weather parameters. And there you see day 2. Again, looking at the moderate in red, the enhanced, followed by yellow, which is the slight, and then the marginal. When we look at the day 2 tornado threat, we're in the 10% hatched, but the 15% comes pretty close to western Louisville. That would be in that moderate area. Again, noting that within 25 miles from a point is what that hatched area means, that it would be a strong, greater than an EF2 tornado. So, yes, the chance is highest to our west, but it gets pretty close to us. We're still at a 10% chance across the bulk of our viewing area. And there could be a few strong tornadoes. When we look at the wind on day 2, you'll notice we are in the 30% hatched. So strong winds of 58 plus mile per hour. And then the hail threat. This is higher than it was the other day. So the real differences are the wind threat's a little lower than what it was on Sunday in the forecast. The hail threat's higher. The tornado threat a little higher to our west. All right. So I hope that helps put it into perspective of what that looks like. And then that risk area is, the real bullseye is West Kentucky, but it will be moving in our direction. So it bears watching as we bring that a little closer to us during the nighttime hours. All right, so let's go back. Some folks asking about the roads flooded Thursday morning. Yeah, it's possible. We could see some roads already flooded. I mean, by that point, we could already have 4 or 5 inches of rain in some in some isolated areas, probably on the order of 2 to 3 for most. I mean, depends what time Thursday morning you're talking about, but yeah, could have flooded roads. All right. Will there be additional watches and warnings? Absolutely. It's going to happen. Bryce is asking, will supercells jump out in front of the line early? Small chance for that, but it's not out of the question. Those individual cells would have the ability to produce the larger hail and the larger and more violent tornadoes because they would be in an environment on their own, which is why they get the name supercell. But most of the severe weather we see will be in the line that moves through. The strongest that we could see would be in those individual supercells, though. Those are just a far less of a guarantee than the linear version of the storms moving in. Is this expected to be worse than Sunday? Well, again, that's relative to if you were hit by a tornado on Sunday and there were 5 tornado touchdowns on Sunday, this, may not be worse. But if we wind up seeing, this is going to be probably a little higher of a chance to see severe weather and certainly a higher chance to see flooding. Lorraine's just saying, thank you for keeping us informed. Yes. And Morgan says, please say it's April Fool's. No, I wish it was. I forgot. I'm kind of a prankster too. And I haven't even pulled one single prank today. That's how nutty it's been. It's not over yet though, right? It's 9:30. I still have time. I've just given it away is the problem. All right. I'm scrolling down. Let's see. Angela's saying there is an old picture from 1937 of that flood where they're rescuing people from a window. I do believe one of those women is my great grandmother. Really? I wonder if that was in this paper that I had. I'll have to look. Now that's the Louisville magazine. Ooh. I'll tell you, these papers get old, they get fragile. Let's see. See, I saw that there was one here. It's not a window, it's a door, but that's not the one you're talking about. But there are a ton of pictures in this. And boats, I remember just look at this. You got boats going, hang on. Boats just going down the roads of downtown Louisville because of the floodwaters, people having to get rescued. And of course, they set up a lot of triage centers and camps and shelters. Some areas already doing that, by the way. Bullitt County, I saw a message from Jerry Summers down there. He's their judge executive. They have already set up a number of shelters for people that may need it. So already being proactive, making sure there are places to go. Super important. Just in case, right? It's always best to be prepared and say, hey, you know what? Thankfully, we didn't need it. Amy's saying, is there any way the severe potential will go down? I think it's, we never like to say, no, it's not possible because there's always a possibility. But at this point, it's unlikely that the severe weather goes down much, which would still mean severe storms that would produce hail for some, strong, severe winds for some, and or tornadoes for some. Now, the intensity of that could come down a bit because that comes up and down with the data and with what we don't know. Keep in mind, we're still more than 24 hours away. And believe it or not, that's enough time for things to change some, but not a lot. But even some is helpful, right? Especially if it's going down. All right. Scrolling just through some of your Todd, I know Todd. So Todd is a goofball. And Todd says Kevin stays in the wave weather camper in the backyard during bad weather. Yeah, exactly. I From the winter storms, believe it or not, I still have my pillow in the back of my car. So we're always ready. We're like Boy Scouts around here. All right, I'm scrolling through just to see. Here's a good question. Todd's saying, if an outflow boundary happens, does that take away from the main line? Not always. I mean, it can. What we would look for that outflow boundary would be additional storms that would develop on that, and then that just sort of takes over and becomes the main line. But in this situation, I'm not sure things are going to be moving fast enough for that to happen. So we're probably just going to see collisions, which is why the tornado threat's a little bit higher in places, because as these storms collide, they tend to rotate, especially with a little shear that we have, or the shear that we have. So again, the forward motion not moving fast enough could cause the problems that we would see more rotation. All right. I'll put the timeline back up for you. Some of these I've answered about the supercells, so I'm trying to read through them so I'm not repeating myself. Sue is asking a question, and I just popped that on the screen. The severe threat Thursday, again, that's late evening. There's a scattered chance in the afternoon, but the best severe chance is going to be late evening into the early overnight hours. All right. Yeah, I think you're right. Y'all ain't gonna get any sleep for the next 4 days. Right about that. Yikes. Is the tornado threat only for Wednesday night? No. So we would still maintain a tornado threat on that boundary in each of these severe weather instances. It's a little lower than it looks for Wednesday night, but it's still there. It's not zero. Okay. Yeah, if you have a John boat, you're in good shape. You may be called on for some help. Zach is saying, I work Thursday to Sunday night. Should I call in? Leave that up to you. Let's see. Does this mean late afternoon to overnight severe chances daily? Yeah, it really means mid to late evening and into the overnight chances daily. That's what you're looking at, right? I mean, you see the midnight hour on Thursday, boom, right in the middle of the severe chance. You see the midnight hour on Friday toward the end of the chance. So Friday's chance is a little earlier. So just take a minute to look at that timeline as we see it now. And that will help you understand when the severe threat is at its sort of maximum for that time period. All right. Yeah, I know. So Linda's pointing out that small lettering is difficult to read. It's probably, especially if you're looking at it on a phone, that probably is tough. Let me take it full. Maybe that'll help. All right. Maybe that's helpful. I'll leave that up for a minute. That way you don't have to hopefully squint too much to read. All right. We're rolling through. Yeah, the rolling fork. That's a tough one, Sarah. That thing gets out of its banks on a sneeze, doesn't it? So I suspect that's going to be a rough area. A lot of this will just depend on where the heaviest rain sets up. And it won't be necessarily everywhere. I mean, there are going to be places that have heavier rounds. Chris is asking if I have the soundings to share for late tomorrow. Chris, I don't. I'm going to look at those before the 11 here, but I don't have them in front of me. Sorry, I put this together. It's been kind of a crazy day with planning everything, and this I just took some of the television graphics to pop on here. All right, I think we're getting close to the end. I know we've spent a lot of time looking at the data, a lot of the questions. It's one of those times where we just are best to be prepared. How do we do that? Well, you just check back frequently. We're going to give you updates. This will be changing. How much still to be determined. Obviously, the closer we get, the less change we typically see in scenarios like this. So we will be working through the night tonight and tomorrow to make sure we're honed in on the severe weather potential for late tomorrow and the wind that occurs earlier in the day. All right. I'm going to jump off and say thank you for being on here. I appreciate everybody saying hello and asking questions. I'm going to pop up the SkyTrack for a minute. When I come back, I will show at least the 10 days so you can see we do have some breaks in this, all right? So let me just take a real quick 30-second break so I can queue up. It might take me a minute. I'll queue up the 10-day forecast, and I'll be right back with that, all right? All right, back with you. I got the 10-day here. Let's take a quick look at that. You'll notice the 4 alert days that we've been talking about, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all lined up there. And you'll notice that we do have some relief by the time we get early next week. It is cooler. Highs near 50 Monday and Tuesday. Lows back in the 30s. So it is cooler through that time. And that's getting us close to thunder, followed by Easter. Then we're into the Derby. I mean, things are happening fast, right? And the temperatures will cool down next week, and it will be calmer next week. So that's a look at that 10-day earliest alert. I will have an update on that tonight at 11 o'clock as well. So I've got some data to go through. I've got about an hour to do that and freshen up our graphics for the 11 o'clock show. So I'll jump off here and do that. And we'll see you with any updates that we may have as we look ahead to the 10-day forecast and the alert days that loom over the next 4 days. We'll be here. We'll be with you, and we'll walk through it together. And we appreciate you trusting the Wave Storm Tracking team. We'll talk to you, see you tonight at 11, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody.